In the late evening, Charlene took a public bus to meet her friends at the city park. The girl was very upset because the last departure bus that day always stopped at the transportation stop, even though no passengers got off. Charlene immediately reprimanded the bus driver to keep going because no other passengers got off. The bus driver confirmed that the time had shown the last departure. The bus driver emphasized that he was not only bringing people home, but also the spirits who wanted to go down to their destination. Charlene walked back to the very back seat. Instantly the lights on the bus went out completely. The bus driver immediately apologized to the spirits who got into the bus and said that Charlene was just talking. When he was about to sit down, Charlene saw the figure of a female ghost who was sitting right behind her. The girl screamed in fear and whined to get off the bus. The commotion that ensued woke up another male passenger who was sleeping on the bus. Charlene prayed as her back turned. The bus left for fear of seeing the apparition again. He immediately informed his friends if that night he did not participate in exploring the park. And the film begins. Receiving a message from Charlene in the group, Alex and Dylan, who had been waiting, were surprised by him. Alex asked where Charlene was that night. Elsewhere. Natalie tries to call Charlene but her phone doesn't go through. The offerings seemed to be installed on the outskirts of the new garden. Not long after, Natalie joined Alex and Dylan to immediately start their activities. Alex explained that Charlene had suddenly cancelled participating in the exploration that night. Dylan already looked scared and begged Natalie to cancel their event that night. According to local beliefs, if 3 people travel late at night, it will be easy to find ghosts, especially people walking in the middle of the night. Moreover, it was the 7th month of the lunar calendar. Natalie urged her 2 friends to continue with the night's activities because the city park they visited was a former cemetery in World War II. Since the park was built and many road users pass by, accidents often happen right next to the park. Because the place is famous for being haunted, Natalie wants to create exploration content to look for sightings at night. Dylan and Alex still seemed hesitant to continue their activities. Natalie again persuaded her 2 friends to enter the park. They used bicycles that have been provided by the local government by scanning barcodes to borrow them. Natalie had a hard time scanning the barcode because the camera on her phone wouldn't focus. He picked up a bicycle that moved by itself by the roadside without a lock and hurried to the center of the bicycle park beside the newly opened FCE. Natalie immediately recorded herself with Dee and Alex to start the video of her haunted walk. Nat again explained to his 2 friends that he would use a Polaroid camera to capture the sightings in the haunted garden. They started cycling around in the middle of the night whistling to attract ghosts. On the side of the road, candles and offerings in the form of fruit still looked brand new as if there had just been an accident there. Nat stopped his bike and asked his 2 friends to listen carefully. As he rang the bicycle bell, another bell rang out from the distance. They immediately recorded and went to the location suspected to be the source of the bicycle bell sound. Arriving there, Nat took a picture of a tree that suddenly arrived. A female figure appeared right in front of the 3 of them. A frightened Alex tries to stay positive and says it was just a bat. They rushed to the bicycle parking lot and found their bicycle lying on the ground. A frightened Alex begins to accuse Nat and Charlene of deliberately tricking him to scare him. He forced Dylan to call Charlene to prove his accusation. Unfortunately, Charlene's cell phone number is still unreachable. Alex is getting more and more blind and walking here and there to look for Charlene's whereabouts. From a distance, a woman can be seen running and hiding behind the trees. They ran to catch up to the person but Dylan's legs were blocked by something so he fell. Alex suddenly gets angry with Natalie and accuses her of pranking Dylan. The two of them left Natalie without wanting to hear an explanation from their friend. Even though Dylan believed in Natalie, he didn't want to continue the night's activities because he was so scared. Dylan invites Natalie to go out of the park with him. Moreover, the sky is starting to get cloudy. Natalie, who was left alone there, did not immediately despair. He was even more eager to prove the truth of the ghost terror in the new park. At the same time, Alex came home riding his bicycle with Dylan. While chatting, they walked to get out of the park. Strangely, even though it had been a long walk, they always passed through the same corner of the park as if they were just going around in circles with no way out. Dylan realized that they had passed that road 3 times. They watched the map carefully. Meanwhile, Natalie, who was still exploring the park, stopped her bike when she felt someone sitting on the back seat. From the shadow of the light shining on her, Natalie could see someone else sitting behind her. He rushed to grab the camera and took 2 selfies. Unexpectedly, the shots showed a terrible apparition right behind Natalie's body. The girl sent a video on the WhatsApp group and said that the park was indeed haunted. He showed the 2 photos of the apparition and immediately called Dylan. Alex and Dylan are about to follow Natalie because they feel guilty accusing her. By that time Natalie was on the road near a park known for its hauntings. Alex grabbed Dylan's cell phone and forced Nat to leave immediately. Unfortunately, the phone line was dead and Natalie could not be reached again. Natalie, riding on her bicycle, was found lifeless. 6 days after the incident, to be precise at 11:53 p.m., the last departure bus parked the vehicle at the final stop. When the bus driver turned off the vehicle engine, he heard a noise inside the 2nd-floor bus. The female driver checked upstairs and found a little boy named Josh. He took the boy to the office and called his parents. Josh's father rushes to pick up his son and gets scolded by the bus driver. Elsewhere, Minutes meets his friends at a food stall. Together with Seng, Uncle Huate and Ken, they talk about the tragic accident that happened to Natalie at the bicycle park. The car that hit Natalie could not be properly identified because of the lack of light on the haunted road. Minutes seemed to ignore their conversation, because he got an order. The online taxi driver walked to the parking lot following Seng, who gave him some money. Seng said the money was a donation from online drivers to help pay for the medical expenses of Minutes' father, who was seriously ill at the hospital. The order at 3 in the morning brought a young couple who were busy making out along the way. The girl sitting in the passenger seat suddenly smirked when she saw a ghostly figure sitting beside Minutes. He immediately asked Minutes to stop the car and get off the online taxi. In the morning, Minutes hangs out in the parking lot to rest while waiting for orders to come in. He had delivered a fierce woman, and a perverted man who likes to seduce women. In the afternoon, Minutes received orders from 3 of Natalie's girlfriends, namely Charlene, Alexis and Dylan. The 3 of them were looking for the perpetrator who hit and ran on Natalie so that the girl died horribly without anyone helping her. Minutes folded the paper with Natalie's photo and put it away. Immediately, from the rear camera of the car, the girl's legs were bleeding bloody. Minutes looked back but couldn't find anyone there. He drove fast again to go to the hospital to see his father. Because he was in a hurry, Minutes didn't realize there was a subtle figure who was also riding in his car. That day, Minutes received shocking news from Dr. Lim that his father had a stroke. Minutes must raise more money for his father's surgery costs, while the doctor advises Minutes to prepare for the worst. At the same time, Ji-young took his son Josh to a psychiatrist to check Josh's mental condition. It turns out that the boy was severely traumatized after his mother died in a car accident. Since then, Josh would often ride the bus alone late into the night and wouldn't talk to anyone. When his mother was alive, Josh would often go out with his mother on the bus. It was still being done so that Josh could reminisce about the good times he had with his mother. Dr. May explained that Josh had post-traumatic stress disorder. A nurse calls Dr. May to see Josh's picture. Apparently the boy drew a woman's face covered in blood. After coming home from the hospital, Josh immediately sat at the bus stop and boarded the bus to go home. Josh looked so angry at his father that he didn't want to sit down with him. G saw the figure of his late wife who used to sit next to Josh and joke with his son. The man's daydream was shattered by the number of passengers passing down the bus. When he got home, G took off all the photos of his wife and put them in a large suitcase. From the reflection of the bedroom door, Jessica's shadow, G's wife, was seen walking around the house. Even when G was about to pick up his son's drawing book, he saw his wife's hand. Not long after, Ji-young had a guest from the local police. They asked about the chronology of the fatal accident that killed his wife that night. Young couldn't say much. He only said if he picked up his wife and children at the airport and brought them home. Ji goes into her son's room and finds Josh hiding in the closet. The father of one child opened the cupboard but his son was not there. It turned out that Josh had just finished taking a shower and had entered the room. In the evening, Ji took her son to her mother-in-law's house using an online taxi. Incidentally, Minutes is an online taxi driver who takes Ji-young's order. They passed the road around the bicycle park where the accident sign was still posted there. The police are still looking for the driver of the car who had the heart to hit and run on a teenage girl named Natalie Tan. Instantly, Minutes' car suddenly broke down. Ji-young was forced to look for other public transportation because it was late at night and he was afraid to make his mother-in-law wait a long time. Ji and her son boarded the last departure bus to reach mother-in-law's house. Ji-young had a chance to see his late wife's legs when he took the key that fell from his pants pocket. Arriving at the mother-in-law's house, the woman said that if on the 7th day someone died, his spirit would return to meet his beloved family. The mother-in-law showed some strange signs in her house which according to belief, were the work of spirits and spirits. The first mark is found on a pile of rice where there is a palm mark on it. The second sign is the footprints of the late Jessica standing in front of her altar table. Ji went out to call her mistress, Tracy. Little Josh seemed to know his father's misbehavior but he couldn't do much. At the same time, Minutes is still stuck with his car engine that won't start. While opening the front engine, Minutes heard a thump behind his car. He found traces of human hands on the rear bumper of his car. Luckily some youths passed by and helped repair Minutes' vehicle. The four of them looked as if a ghost had sneaked among them. As Minutes left them, a shadowy figure of a human head appeared from the passenger seat. That night Minutes immediately took his car to the repair shop. Takagi, the reliable mechanic, said that Minutes' headlight broke and rushed inside to find spare parts. While waiting for Takagi, Minutes saw blood pouring from under his car. Suddenly, the lights in the workshop went out completely and made Minutes very scared. At that time, Minutes saw the ghost of Natalie who was walking on a bicycle. The ghost seemed to want revenge for the crime that Minutes did to him. Minutes is so scared that he destroys the spare parts rack in Takagi's workshop. He was expelled from the place and hurried away. Minutes tries to remember what really happened. He takes an SD card from the camera in his car and is attacked by a bicycle ghost. While hiding in the elevator, Minutes gets a call from the hospital informing him that his father is in critical condition. Minutes rushes to the hospital where the disturbances don't stop. The windshield of his car was splattered with blood so that it interfered with the view. Natalie's ghost came back to haunt and patted Minutes' shoulder. The woman stopped her car. The figure sat on the seat next to Minutes in the car and asked why Minutes was reluctant to turn himself into the police. Minutes ran out of his car until he passed out in the middle of the road and was found by a lonely street user. At the same time, Josh runs away from his grandmother's house again after overhearing his father talking to another woman on the phone. Ji-young opened a pile of pictures of his son showing the accident that night. Josh drew a bicycle and a dead man in front of his car. He immediately got on the bus and sat on the second floor as usual. Ji heard her son talking to an invisible figure. Ji waited for her son and sat downstairs. But apparently the late Jessica reappeared and bothered her own husband. The figure appeared approaching Ji-young until the lights in the bus just went out. Little Josh ran out of the bus followed by Ji-young, who was frantically looking for his son's whereabouts. After finding his son, Ji convinces Josh not to follow his mother's words. They remembered what really happened the night of the accident. Turns out, Ji got into a big fight with Jessica because she was caught cheating in her office. Jessica even found photos of her husband and co-worker Tracy having sex at the hotel and even in the car. Not accepting her husband's depraved behavior, Jessica filed for divorce and asked for all of her husband's assets to raise a son alone. The debate between them grew louder until they saw Natalie stop in the middle of the road. Ji swerved to avoid Natalie until the single accident occurred. Natalie, who saw the incident firsthand, blamed herself for being the cause of everything. Natalie walked away from the accident without any help. Not long after, Ji-young realized and immediately looked for his wife's child. At that time Jessica was still alive even though her body was full of wounds. Remembering Jessica's threat to ask for a divorce, Ji-young stabbed his wife in the neck with a broken car window. Josh witnessed how it happened. Jessica's spirit reappears and asks Josh to come closer to her. The little boy ran across the street until Ji-young was hit by a car. Before he fell unconscious, Ji-young saw a terrifying apparition of his late wife. Elsewhere, Minutes has been taken to the hospital for collapsing on the highway. Minutes rushed to visit his father and told him that he bumped into someone but ran away. With a weak body, Minutes was carried in a wheelchair by the nurse. He remembered the SD card from the front camera of his car. It turned out that after Natalie saw the car accident that befell Ji-young's family, the girl hurriedly left and crossed the road without looking left or right. Minutes, who was speeding down the street, hit Natalie's bicycle, causing the girl to die. In front of Minutes, 2 police officers came to secure Josh, whose father had an accident and was taken to the hospital. Grandma came in a hurry to pick up her favorite granddaughter. At the same time, Minutes walked slowly towards the police officers and gave himself up for the accident that befell Natalie Tan. He handed over the evidence recorded on the front camera of his car while saying that he was the driver of Natalie's collision, which the police had been looking for. The last departure bus back in operation was driven by an elderly uncle who strongly believes in local traditions. The bus driver stopped again at every bus stop to annoy a young man. He asked why the bus driver always stopped at the bus stop even though no one was getting off or getting on. From previous experience, the bus driver finally did not explain the truth. He only said that it was because the bus was operating at the last hour of departure. With that reason, the youth accepted it more without protest, sitting back quietly. And the film ends.
This Singaporean horror film directed by Ko Chong Woo contains 3 stories with 3 different characters. John Woo deliberately made a relatable and unique film of Singapore's paranormal encounters with various means of transportation in the middle of the night. The idea that started out as a short film turned out to be a complete horror feature with 3 storylines united in one common thread, namely the last departure bus. Many local myths are deliberately displayed, such as going 3 at night, buses that stop at each stop at the last hour of departure, as well as the spirits of the dead who visit their homes on the 7th day after burial. In addition, Singapore also believes in the myth that there are haunted roads that often cause accidents.